How are you this morning?
What up, dog? So, guys, while we are casually talking before we start the podcast, Hank, I remember he was on my podcast recently talking about health journey. We're not going to talk about that. We might touch on a little bit, Hank, but we're mainly going to talk about you getting the Black Plague. And I'm going to talk a lot in code today. So, guys, read between the lines. I'm not allowed to say certain things on social media. So Hank knows code. He's going to speak in code too. So just work with us when we have to kind of stumble and go, you got to figure out what you can say without being censored.
Right. Exactly.
But let's get started. Guys, that right there is Hank Garner, and he's no stranger to me. He's been a great friend of mine for over a decade, a long time ago. Did the low-carb diet, had a low-carb podcast, was trying to compete with Jimmy Moore, and you were great. And I loved your podcast back in the day. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I guess I said to you, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. Come on to my team. And you started helping me. If guys, you like my graphics and you like some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe you think it's me. No, it's Hank Garner. So, Hank, thank you for all the work you do for me. But I got you on here today partially because we talked to you a few months back about you starting a health journey. I do want to get an update, but you recently got the Black Plague, 9-1 DIVOC. And I remember when you got it, dude, you were down for the count. And it really knocked you hard. And I was worried about you there for a little bit. But you came out the other side. And we're going to talk all about that experience here today. Because you are in that category with comorbidities. You're a little younger. You're my age. And so a very young man. But you still have all the comorbidities that a lot of people kind of freak out. Oh, my gosh, if you have that and you get this Black Plague, you're going to die. Like that's kind of the sticker that's being put out there. I want to push back against that here today. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's always a pleasure. And
you're used to watching all of these because you kind of do some of the production behind the scenes.
Right.
You're the producer of the One Step Deeper podcast. You do a lot of stuff for me. So again, thank you for that. But let's go to your journey first because you did start on a health journey. You and I had a very honest conversation on the Livin, Vida, Low-Carb show about this. Tell us how it's been going before you got 9-1 DIVOC, that is.
So it was going well. You know, had was doing a lot of the things that you're doing on your sabbatical to 50. You know, doing some natural intermittent fasting. You know, skipping meals, having a long window, couple of days a week, just not eating at all. Doing some walking and just a lot of yard work because, you know, it's the middle of summer and you can get out in the yard and, you know, do all the things that you do out in the yard in the middle of summer. And was going well. Things were starting to feel good. And, you know, back a decade ago when I, you know, had my massive you know, body change. I was running a lot and I had never been a runner and I'm not built to be a runner. And I actually heard you talking about this. I forget where it was because I listened to, you know, so much of your stuff.
What you're saying, I'm always in your head.
Yeah. It's, you were saying, maybe it was you and Brittany. I can't remember, but there was, it was a conversation you were having and about doing the hard thing. And that resonated so deeply with me because that's exactly the way I felt back then was that I wanted to do something that was hard, that challenged me. Whether I believe that that's the path to ultimate fitness or not, it was a personal challenge.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I took it. And just about the time that all of that was ramping up and everything was firing on all cylinders and really starting to feel like making distance, then the 1st of August hits. And I remember you and I were talking on the phone one day and we were making plans like we do a lot of times. We're going to do this and that. And, you know, just the conversations we have. And then maybe that was the end of, you know, a week of Thursday, Friday when we talked. And then I remember you and I talked again on Monday. And I said, Jimmy, I've been in bed all weekend. I've just felt horrible. I feel like I've been hit by a truck. And I really thought that it was just a summer cold kind of thing. And that just all of the things I had done had kind of put me in a place to be susceptible to catching some. Didn't think anything about it really. That went on for a few days. I went to the doctor, got a flu test and a strep test. That came back negative, and I think I remember telling you, it's just I just feel like crap. I just need to rest a few days.
It can't be the Black Plague, like you
right.
Adamant. I just don't believe it's the Black Plague. There are still other diseases out there. I don't believe it. So. Exactly,
and because everything is just being touted as being that now. You know, the things don't just happen anymore. It's got to be that, and you know, you and I are very similar in a lot of ways. We both work from home. I'm just not out amongst a lot of people every day.
Right.
You know, like where would I catch it? You know, if it's that, I have no idea, you know? So anyway, when I was at the doctor, I got a test, the horrible nasal swab, the 91 DIVOC test. And, it came back a couple of days later as being positive. And I was floored. I couldn't.
I'm sorry? We have a little message thing we do through Signal, and you went, son of a, and I was like, no way. Like, I was actually relieved for you because, look, I've been sick a few times, and even like within the time period that you had the Black Plague, I also got sick, and I was like, what are the odds that I also have this crazy thing? So I go get checked out, and they run the thing up to my brain. And it comes back totally negative. And then I've had I went to the biohacking conference a few weeks ago, and they had you nasal swab, and they both did the, are you positive for it? And do you have any antibodies? And it was negative for both. So I'm like, come on, there are other diseases out there besides this one. Right.
Well, mine came back positive, and, thank God, my doctor said, would you be interested in having an antibody infusion?
Yeah.
And, you know, I had done enough research. I was like, absolutely. Yes, I absolutely want that.
Yeah.
And so they said, okay, well, we'll try to schedule it. You know, that's in really high demand right now. We'll see what we can do. And then I think they called me back that evening. This must have been a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because that Friday morning we can do the antibody infusion. And I said, I'll be there. So I went to the hospital. By this time I had, I remember when I went to the doctor, I remember telling them, I really don't feel, horrible. I don't feel as bad as I would, if you had the flu. I've had like influenza before, and you just feel, you know, horrible. And I didn't quite feel that bad, but something was going on. Well, along this time, before I went to get the antibody infusion, I lost my sense of smell and taste.
Yes.
And that is the most bizarre symptom.
And it was gone for a while, right?
It was. And the weird thing is when you get sick, when you have a really bad cold or flu and you get all stuffed up, you think that you can't taste anything or smell anything. But you can. It's just faint, but it's real muffled. But when I say I could not smell or taste, I mean zero. And that is the most bizarre symptom, because I would go to, I never really lost my appetite, but I sipped on a lot of broth and things like, and it just had no taste at all. So, nothing.
So did you get bathroom duty since you couldn't smell all the crap in the bathroom? Okay. All right. Dawn is going to send him to go clean the bathroom. You can't smell it, so you go do it.
Right. Speaking of that, that's I'm glad you mentioned Dawn. We have two kids that still live at home. One's in college and one is about to begin college. And, they went to their sister's house to go. I told them I tested positive. You know, I've already been sleeping with Dawn in the same bed. So, you know, there wasn't much sense in quarantining from her, but we sent the kids over to their sister's house. And so it's just me and Dawn at home, and she was with me, and we sat on the couch most of the time side by side and watched TV, because what else are you going to do? And she never, she had a little mild cold symptom for a day or two. and she was right there with me the whole time. Never got it. Never got it.
Or she got it and T-cell immunity kind of kicked in.
Right.
Able to beat it that way. And it's kind of what's frustrated me about the narrative out there of, well, when you get this, it's just going to be the most devastating thing. And like, no, the vast majority of people, they deal with it like Dawn did. Some people, and you never went to the hospital other than to get the,
no.
I'll call them MC Hammer things, the mono, yeah. Kind of come up with codes so they don't censor this video, but yeah, and so you're pretty much at home for most of your recovery from yours. I still want to keep digging into that. And it's the very, very minuscule people that actually go to the hospital and have things that progress from there. But they make it seem like if you get this thing, that's your inevitability, is hospital or death.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I was, I felt bad for 3 or 4 days, just really miserable. Got the MC Hammer. And I remember talking to some people and they were like, oh, the day that I got it, I felt better. I just started on an upward trend.
Yeah.
That wasn't my experience. It took 2 or 3 days to really start. But what I believe it did was just blunt the effects and just kind of stopped it.
So you got the MC Hammer. Did you get the horse medicine or anything else? No.
I remember when before I got the MC Hammer drip, talking with you, and I'd take vitamin D3 daily.
Yes. You up it.
I cranked that up to intense levels. I didn't normally take vitamin C, but I did have some vitamin C at home, so I started taking that.
Zinc.
I'm sorry? Zinc. I had actually started taking a zinc supplement about a month before and ran out and didn't have the replacement bottle from Amazon yet. And I think that's actually when I got sick. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had been taking that just as
a prophylactic.
The vitamin D3 and zinc. And then when I ran out and hadn't been used to ordering that, to keep it coming, that 3 or 4 days that I was out, I think that's when I actually got sick. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But I started up the D3, started vitamin C, started zinc, just really got that going. Then got the infusion. And then, it didn't get much worse. I still felt like I'd been hit by a truck,
You sounded rough. When we talked on the phone, I'm like, dude, I will handle whatever I need to handle this week in my business. You get better. I was like, you don't sound great. I was sincerely concerned, especially after you got the MC Hammer infusion. I thought, okay, that's going to knock this thing out pretty quick. And for you, it didn't immediately, which makes me wonder, what would have happened had you not gotten the infusion?
Right.
Would it have gotten for you?
I know. And I mean, it's all speculation, but it's, I was so grateful that we had a ready supply of that, and that the doctor that I used was not scared to try it, and I know that some states, especially here in the South where we are, there's some political back and forth about them being able to get those treatments now. And
this was before they were rationing it, because Florida was having like whole centers set up just for that MC Hammer treatment. And then the federal government said, no, we need to like ration it across the country. And so it's like, okay, yes, but if they're not using it, then send it where it's going to be used.
Right.
Keto can be hard. Tabulating, measuring, baking, taking 3 months to perfect one recipe, and to mixed reviews.
Did something die in here? Oh, I think it moved.
And by that point, you give up your diet, find a dark corner, and stuff yourself with sugar, carbs, and regret.
This, isn't what it looks like.
Well, this is where Keto Chow saves the day. The easiest, tastiest, ketoist meal replacement on the market.
It's like ice cream melted in my mouth.
Yes, but melted ice cream with all the protein, nutrients, vitamins, and electrolytes your body needs.
Oh, that's cool.
And with 3 starter kits, each with restaurant tips, keto food guides, and a ton of flavors to try, your taste buds and your waistline will thank you.
Thank you.
So grab your starter kit today at jimmylovesketochow.com.
It's so easy.
Keto Chow. Make keto easy.
Well, what's weird is that at that time, there was a wave that was kind of running through the area of the country where I live in.
Yeah.
A lot of people got it. And and the last 3 or 4 weeks, those numbers have just been falling through the floor and just dropping off. But now the wave is going up north. And a lot of northern states are dealing with it now. And the southern states are, we're sitting really, really good right now.
Yeah.
So the idea of distributing it across the whole country, and where states like Maine had hardly any cases at the time.
Right.
And anyway, that's a whole other discussion.
For a moment, about a month or so, a few weeks ago, South Carolina had the highest kind of rate per capita of new cases as well. I kind of hate this, that when a case happens, it's almost being treated as if it's the worst possible outcome. And it's like, case could just be what Dawn had. Case could just be, okay, achoo. Okay, that was it. Like, I didn't have much. Case could be what you went through, and it wasn't great, but you survived. And
Right.
that's the big picture I want people to get from here. You have comorbidities going on. You've had some health stuff going on. You've got weight going on, and you're working on all those things. And yet you had all these things that were supposed to make you susceptible to this thing, and you didn't succumb to it. Why not?
I mean, that's speculation, but I was eating well. When I got sick, I was not spiking my blood sugar, on a regular basis, like a lot of people probably do. I don't know, my blood pressure was under control. I was taking supplements and vitamins to, I'm sure all of those things played, a role.
Yeah. Look, I hate that this mantra is, well, if you're obese and you have weight on your body, you're just automatically going to get the worst of the worst of the.
Right.
I've actually had people say that when I posted about 9-1 DIVOC on my social media pages. People will be like, well, but Jimmy, you better not get this because you're fat, and if you're fat, you're going to die from this. They've literally said that. I'm going, okay, but like, obesity is not the only comorbidity. There's like metabolic health. There's all kinds of things. And yet the assumption is, because you're a bigger person like you and I are, that you're just automatically going to get the worst of the worst and die.
Yeah, that's just crazy. That's this one size fits all mentality that's the problem with a lot of things in society right now, not just this.
Yeah, and so you and I have been in this health space a very long time, over a decade for each of us, and we've talked about it, and we're living it, and we're doing things proactively for our health that we know will help boost the natural processes within the body to fight things that might come out. How's that for like code language? For IMMUNE word. So, so why aren't they talking about that on a grand level? Do you feel like, because of your experience, that you should have succumbed to this when it hit you? Does it make you mad that like other people that look like you may not know the information that you and I know?
Oh yeah, it makes me very mad. And I remember talking with my wife, and when I was in the throes of it, and when I was the sickest, that I was thinking, I kept putting the sickness I was going through in perspective, and comparing it to what other people have gone through, or what everyone had built up the expectation to be. And my experience, yes, I was sick. Yes, I sounded horrible. Yes, I had no energy. But I wouldn't I wouldn't have chosen to shut down all of society over it. It just the expectations. I kept waiting for it to get so much worse.
Yeah.
And it just and I was just sick. You know, it was just like people get sick. That we're pretending that sickness is something that we've never dealt with as a society. You know, it happens. People get the flu every year, and you know, we don't just roll up the sidewalks over it.
And they die of it. Like when I
Yeah.
statistics of death for just the seasonal flu, I mean, we're talking 300,000 people a year. I didn't realize it was that big. That was that much.
Yeah. Well, I've talked with some friends that work in healthcare, and they said that a few years back, I don't remember how many, 3, 4 or 5, that we had a really bad run of flu and pneumonia, and that people were dying left and right, and that the hospital was literally overrun with people, and it just never made the news. And that was a legitimate, you know, crisis.
Yeah.
And it didn't warrant public outrage. So I'm not exactly, I mean, you know, there's lots of theories on why the outrage now, and people have been legitimately sick, and
Yes.
and we know of people that have died of it. So not making light of it at all, but I do tend to make light of the response.
Yes, and let me give one caveat here, because I know a few friends of mine that watch my show and listen to me. They want me to talk about long 9-1 DIVOC, because there are people who get this and then they have these extended symptoms. I know one friend of mine, physically fit, very active, healthy as all get out, keto person, and she got long version of 9-1 DIVOC. And when I start talking about it, she's like, "You've got to tell people it's not guaranteed that you're going to survive without any consequences." So you had kind of a short-term bout with it for a couple weeks there. You were really kind of having to battle it. For her, it's been like 8 months. She's just now coming out the other side of it. Is that all that to say that the vast majority of people that get into contact with this 9-1 DIVOC, they're perfectly fine. And it could be that I may have already encountered it, Hank, but I am secluded, like you said. I don't really go many places to the store, you know, but I've been to conferences and I've been around people and hugged and high-fived and all the things. And I'm not scared of it because I trust that my own internal mechanisms for dealing with this are doing well. And maybe it doesn't show up as an antibodies thing, but maybe it shows up in, if I was able to test it, my T-cell response and some other mechanisms, plus all the prophylactic vitamin D, K2 that I'm taking. I just feel like we're being pushed to one way to deal with this, and that one way is not actually dealing with it.
Right. Well, and the thing that amazed me during this whole thing is that, you know, I probably picked it up at the grocery store or something. I don't know. But, you know, through the worst of the shutdowns and things last year, grocery stores, Walmart, and building supply stores never closed. Okay. And we never had an outbreak at Home Depot or Lowe's. Oh. There never was that.
Look what's happening now. We live in SEC country. There are stadiums full of people. Ain't none of those people. They're saying some choice words for our president, but other than that, they're not getting this really bad Black Plague thing that's out there. They're out there living their lives, and it's almost like we live in like two different countries of kind of the southern states, and I'm not just saying southern, it's just very prevalent down here in the South, where we're kind of living more free, and then you take California or New York or Illinois, and it's like draconian shutdowns and you know, have to show your papers and all this stuff. It's getting scary out there in some parts of the country, and other parts are like, dude, no, this is no big deal.
Yeah, well, speaking of the SEC, you know, the high priest of health, Dr., you know, what's his name? Yeah, said, a few months ago, that football season, ought to be canceled. And, our home team here where I am, Mississippi State University, we got 85,000 people in that stadium in Starkville, hanging off the rafters. Next door to us in Alabama, they've got 100,000 people packed in, Bryant-Denny Stadium, and and our numbers are going down. And people are literally packed in these stadiums like sardines. And, so there's conventional wisdom for you. And another, speaking of conventional wisdom, the thing that we used to tout, especially in the low carb world, a decade ago or a decade and a half ago, was always questioning the conventional wisdom.
Always.
Ansel Keys and all of his, ilk, gave us this horrible information that becomes conventional wisdom. And this community, was famous for going against that.
Oh.
And better than anyone, over the last year, we've seen the camps break out.
Yes. So long before 9-1 DIVOC came along, yes, I was challenging, along with many others, the whole theory that saturated fat will raise your cholesterol and cholesterol is the enemy of your health. So when I wrote this book, I actually had a Wikipedia page at one time. You try to look me up on Wikipedia now, I'm gone. But I had a Wikipedia page, and there was somebody that was like the cholesterol deniers. If you're denying that cholesterol is an enemy in your health, you were actually canceled. So this was 8 years ago. This is not new. So you're right. We are the original. We're the OGs of challenging that convention. So like when I started speaking out about this, people stick to keto. I'm like, you do realize this is along the same lines of the things I've been battling my whole career.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me that people can compartmentalize in their brain saturated fat over here and viruses over here, and that the two don't, like, they can't see the logic and how they're separating this, and it blows my mind the way that we have just allowed ourselves to go against logic. It blows my mind. I can't understand it.
Well, and especially now that you've gotten 9-1 DIVOC, I'm glad that you survived it and you've overcome it. Now you've got this little bonus thing, and you actually got the test results. I helped you pay for the test. I wanted to see. I was just very curious of what like your antibody levels are now. So you want to share some of that?
Super high, 1,283.
Woo!
And 0.8 is they can the way I understand it, that if you a reading of 0.8 and higher means antibodies are present.
Yeah.
And mine are way higher than that. So
it just have this, and so that will obviously not be that robust.
Sure.
But I know people like Mike Muscle, Metabolic Mike. He also got it like in November, December last year, and he tested his antibodies shortly after. It was very similar to yours. Even like 5-6 months later, he tested again during the summer. They were still very robust, and there was kind of this argument of, well, they'll wane over time, so that's why you need the hokey pokey to give yourself a boost. But like, to me, that's asinine. Why would you, on top of what the good Lord gave you by helping you survive this thing, why would you add another stimulus on top of the protection you already have, which we now know several studies have shown that protection that you got from getting it the good old-fashioned way in the wild and then overcoming it, that protection is far greater than any hokey pokey that's out there.
Well, yeah, and with any other sickness that we've ever dealt with in life, we follow that logic, and for whatever reason, we're just choosing to not let logic factor in anymore. I really don't understand, because we're treating this like it, and I know this was a novel virus and all of that, but we're acting like we've never seen sickness before.
Yeah, and look, the arguments of, well, Hank, it's not for you that you do this. It's for other people. And so you need to get the hokey pokey to protect other people. And I keep asking myself, like, logic, people, put on your logic hat. If you get the shot, it's supposed to be able to protect you from this. Yes, you can still get it, but it protects you from hospitalization and all the rest. Okay. If that's true, how does someone who chooses not to get it putting you at risk? Because even if they spread it to you, so can another person that's already got the hokey pokey.
Right.
It's not going to make the hokey pokey any less viable in you because you got it from someone that didn't get the hokey. I don't understand their logic. It makes no sense.
No sense at all. And we have people in our family and extended family that have chosen to get the hokey pokey. And I'm all for making an informed decision.
Yes.
And it being your decision. I support you making a decision 100%. And, but this, I mean, we're ostracizing people now for making a personal health choice.
And even in families, I talk to many friends of mine who believe much the same way you and I do about this thing. It's your choice if you want to get it, but honor the choices of those who don't. And so she had a family member said, hey, we're going to meet in California for Christmas, but we require that you get the hokey pokey to come. And it's like, no. She offered, okay, I will get a negative test in the days before I come, and I will wear a mask the whole time. And they've said, no, you got to get the shot. And I'm like, my God, this is like, this is weird. I've never heard of such a divisive thing. And then, of course, all these employers forcing all these nurses and doctors and airline pilots and teachers on down the line of all these people that are military people losing their job because they're making a personal health decision. It's disgusting.
It is disgusting. And we saw just a few weeks ago that University of Alabama in Birmingham, UAB, which is one of our regional big medical centers, rolled back their requirement for the vaccine, which was kind of one of the first big high profile medical systems to kind of back away from that. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a trend. I'm not exactly sure what went into that decision, but.
Well, look, I mean, by the way, use hokey pokey, not the other word, because I will get censored. You know that, but I'm reminding you. Yeah, I think the power is with those people. And look, if you've gotten the hokey pokey or not gotten the hokey pokey, I don't think anybody should be in favor of this being forced on anyone. Like, you don't know the situation. You don't know if they've had a previous hokey pokey injury. You don't know if they have some immune system problem that if they get this hokey pokey, it could actually kill them. You don't know if they're pregnant. You don't know what the circumstance is that they are objecting to this. You don't know if they have a religious exemption, which that's been the saddest part, is all the religious exemptions being denied. And now we know from some like insider reporting, they're actually using some fetal tissue in the experimentation.
Right.
Like, that is a direct violation of some religious beliefs that people have. And so the fact that it's not being honored, it's just, that's another little, I mean, we could go on and on about all the kind of ramifications of these decisions, but we're in a weird place in the United States of America. You and I have been around long enough to see the glory days of America. I would say during the 80s, we really kind of saw a lot of the glory days of America. And then we've watched this slow, meandering decline.
Well, it was a slow, meandering decline until the last several years. It feels like we're falling off a cliff.
Yeah, like we jumped up real high and then.
Right. It's crazy. And we're seeing a lot of the divisive things, like we mentioned earlier, companies that are requiring hokey pokeys and things like that, and we're starting to see some pushback in the airline industry specifically. That's a big news story now.
Oh yeah.
I think there's going to be some things that really challenge. Some people are just getting fed up.
Look, I think when you push people to their brink, And you talk about people like yourself who you now have very robust protection against this thing. Why would you ever go get the hokey pokey now? Do you have any, is there any argument that could be made that would ever convince you at this point?
Well, at this point, no. I don't see any, and I look at this strictly from a risk benefit scenario. I don't see any benefit in it. We're old enough, Jimmy, that my parents didn't do this, but I know people that did. That when kids would get chicken pox, when I was in elementary school, that their parents would have a chicken pox party and invite all the healthy kids to come over so that they could get chicken pox and get over it and get the natural immunity from it. And like, I lived through that, and I understand the logic behind that and why it worked. And I just, you're going to have to come up with a very good argument to sell me on getting this thing now.
I want to know what that argument would be. I literally, if you've been exposed in the natural, you have a far superior protection against all the ways that this black plague can impact you, not just the spike protein, but all the ways now.
Right.
That's the big difference. This hokey pokey only impacts the spike protein way that it can impact you, but then we know this thing can mutate and get around that and have other ways to get you. To me, I want the best protection, which is natural exposure, recovery from, and have those little supermen inside your body that says, come on, come at me. I got this. And you've got it. And look, I'm on the other end of the spectrum because I haven't been exposed to it, even though I feel like I have been a few times now, but for some reason it's still negative and it shows up as negative for antibodies. And so I don't know if I have those things or not. All I do know is I'm not as fearful of the Black Plague with its 99.8% survival rate in my age group as I am the potential for what the hokey pokey could do to me, the unknown. Like, okay, death rate is one thing from it, and there have been some deaths reported according to the Bears data, but what are the long-term implications? We just don't know. It really made me sad when in the NBA, Andrew Wiggins plays for the Golden State Warriors, and he was just adamant, I'm not getting it. And he plays in San Francisco where they're mandating it. If you're going to be in any building, you've got to show your card.
Right.
And I don't want to do that. I don't feel like I need to be forced into a decision that I and my family are not comfortable with. Do you know what? He ended up doing it. He's 26 years old. He's at the height of his kind of career. He's got millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars in potential income coming. And he's like, I got it, but none of my family's getting it. And I sure hope in 5 to 10 years I'm okay. Like, how unfair was that? Here is this athlete at the prime of his career, prime of his health, taking care of himself. He wanted to make a decision for his body, and he felt it was taken away from him.
Are you tired of playing the mask game? Me too. That's why I wanted to tell you about the Unmask. This is a breathable, completely breathable. It covers, you can't even see that it's breathable, but it's breathable. Whether you're going on a plane, having to go into a store and wearing this thing, playthemaskgame.com is how you can get this mask. They come in all kinds of colors and everything. In fact, right there, you can see right through it what it is, but when you're wearing it, it does not look like it's anything different, but it's breathable, baby. Playthemaskgame.com.
Well, the saddest part is that he's a professional athlete, 26 years old. He's in the prime of his health. This is the last point in his life that he should be forced to make a medical decision like that. It's literally not, he's not at risk.
And then if something does happen to him, oh, well, it's on you. Now he's got the money, but other people being forced into these decisions, they don't have the means that if something happened to them. I love what Dave Asprey said. If any employer tries to force you into doing something you don't want to do, you throw it back on them and say, okay, I'll comply if you will, in writing, promise that if something happens to me, you take care of my medical bills. Ain't nobody signing that. None of the pharmaceutical companies are liable for that. That's the big one for me. It's like, if you're so confident that this is safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, they keep throwing that in our faces. If it's so safe and effective, put your money where your mouth is and pony up if people have any health problems that can be tied back to this thing, any death, and a death should have a big payment to the family if someone dies from this. Like, none of that's on the table. That's a huge part of the skepticism.
Well, and you can't tell me that this is not going to be litigated out at some point in the future. I mean, there's just people are not going to push back only for so long, and as inevitably there will be side effects and things like that come to bear, because there always are. I'm not picking on this. There always are.
Even Pfizer had a drug pulled just this year. Was it Chantix or whatever it's called? Yeah. They had that pulled, and it's been on TV advertising for almost a decade. I remember all the Chantix commercials, and I'm like, okay, there's another drug company. And now they had to pull it, and they're in litigation over this medication. How do we know that the hokey pokey isn't going to be the same fate in like 2030?
Well, and I hate to be have a negative outlook on things, but you know that the pharmaceutical companies factor in a certain amount that they're going to eventually have to pay. That you know, that's all part of the factoring when they bring a drug to market.
Right. Well, when Pfizer made 9 new billionaires in their company in just the first quarter of this year, 9 new billionaires, is that not like red flags? And guess what? They made those billions off of us. I know they're telling us, go get your free hokey pokey down at your local Walgreens and CVS. It's not free. We're paying for it. That's coming out of U.S. Treasury, which comes from our tax dollars. And so, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do next for the people that are refusing this. Like, people like yourself have the natural protection. People like me feel like my body is strong enough to handle this. I don't want to take that risk. I feel the risk from getting the hokey pokey is far worse than getting 9-1 DIVOC. What are they going to do next? Like, they tried to bribe, and that didn't work. Then they tried to coax and, oh, you know, it's for the greater good, for your fellow, you know, people around you, blah, blah, blah. That didn't work. Then now they're doing the coercion. It's like, are they going to come to our houses and knock on the door and say, here's your, you know, and just jab you?
I hope not. I hope that there's still enough freedom-mindedness that I think people are good-natured enough that over the last year and a half, people have gone along with a lot of things just because they're good-natured and they want to be a good neighbor. I mean, citizen aside, they want to be a good neighbor to their people around them. But that only goes so far.
Well, the morality aspect of this has been disgustingly gross to me, because you're not any worse of a person if you choose not to get this. In fact, I consider you highly intelligent. I'm out there on the market looking for a lady. I'd rather choose a lady that's denying this thing, because I know she's intelligent at that point. At least has the wherewithal to process, analyze, and come up with, like, what's the best solution for me. And that's not to shame anyone who's gotten it. If you've gotten it and you are happy with your decision, go for it. But I love people are asking questions, but even that is kind of being forbidden. Like, I can't say certain things online or I will have my accounts removed. In fact, YouTube, I haven't said this a whole lot publicly, and I don't even think I've told you, every single video, every single one, all the podcasts, all the tidbits, all the little extra YouTube videos that I post, every one of them, when I try to post them and turn on the monetization, limited ability to monetize. And it means I have to request a review for someone to look at it. And every time, Hank, when they look at it, oh yeah, it's agreed to be monetized. But by the time they give the agreement, I've already got most of the views for that, and so I didn't make any money off of that. So they're doing.
Okay, you've been flagged as a troublemaker.
Yes, and in fact, when I have the little monetization, we've seen that you've had a lot of flags lately. Yeah, and I've appealed every one, and I've won every single one. Not one of them has stayed up as a flag, and it's like, why? Like, they know, and they're coming after people speaking out, which I'm taking a risk doing this video today. They're going to kind of go, okay, what's he talking about? What's this 9-1 dot? You know, so it's tricky.
Well, and there's one thing to talk about what our theories are, but another thing to just share our experience. I mean, your experience is your experience. You know, you can politicize that all you want to, but my experience is my experience.
But the people who have been injured by the hokey pokey, I've seen some of those videos, and like within just an hour of them being up, boom, they're gone. And you go to other sites like Rumble and go to other Telegram, and I mean, there's different places you can go that you can see some of that stuff, but most people don't go to those places. They're here on Instagram, they're watching on YouTube, they're going to the mainstream sites, they're going on Facebook, and they don't realize there's a whole another world that they don't even see out there.
Well, and if a kid has a reaction to a measles shot, there would be no censorship of a parent talking about their experience with the measles inoculation. So why this? That's what I want to know.
Well, and I guess I get it. I'm going to play the devil's advocate and try to come from their perspective. You don't want to unnecessarily alarm people with something that's very minor, and that's not happening on a wide scale basis. We've had tens of millions of people get this hokey pokey in their arm, and we're only talking a few thousand people, so it's statistically so insignificant, which I would say the same thing. We've only had 0.02% of people actually die from this that are under the age of 70. So why are we subjecting all these people for something that's so minuscule? You sound right. Who could play that game?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So you've got this robust antibody response. You feel good, or is everything like you're beyond it now? You've been going for a few weeks.
One thing that's really funny that happened just recently is I've had a little dry cough just in my throat, just a tickle there that really has ramped up over the last couple of weeks, and I've sucked on some sugar-free cough drops here and there, and had a little Vicks vapor rub, you know, just to kind of keep things. And I just assumed it was kind of leftovers from the Black Plague. And I was out in the yard over the weekend, and I noticed there's ragweed everywhere and goldenrods everywhere. And I thought, I got to thinking, I was like, well, since I've been sick, I haven't taken any allergy medicine. And I picked up some allergy medicine over the weekend, some Zyrtec, and took it, gone. Yeah. And I was like, I just assumed it was that. And it was just seasonal allergies that just flare up, you know, at the end of summer every year. And that's right. I kind of laughed about that because, you know, I fell into the game, you know, that other things happen in life that you just deal with. And I just assumed it was this thing. And so I understand why people get caught up in it, but, yeah.
Well,
so
hammered at you day after day after day, it's top of mind, and you've got symptoms of that thing that's top of mind. That's the first thing your brain's going to go to. Like I said, I had bronchitis. That's what I ended up being diagnosed with. Right. When it came back negative for 9-1 DIVOC, okay, we're going to continue the treatment for bronchitis. But they were treating me for bronchitis even before the test came back for 9-1 DIVOC. And they're like, you know, come back if you've got 9-1 DIVOC. We need to administer the MC hammer and maybe the horse, right, all that stuff. So thankfully it wasn't that. But for me, like, I was down, and then I was down hard. You know, I missed a whole podcasting. I had a whole bunch of interviews lined up, and it's like, nope, they all got shot down. And so you scramble. But I'm glad you're okay now. I'm glad you overcame. I'm glad you survived the great 9/1 DIVOC scare of 2021. And you are proof that it's not a death sentence, that if you get this, that it's inevitable that you're going to get it and die. So I'm glad you're not dead. I'm glad you got sick but didn't get too bad sick, you know, and I'm glad that your allergy medicine is kicking in, and you're not just dealing with hay fever, or you're dealing with hay fever, not with lingering 9/1 DIVOC. So really,
I thought you did kick out of that.
So again, check out Hank Garner. He has a great podcast. It's how I met him many years ago with a low-carb podcast he does. But he does this podcast called the Author Stories Podcast, and he does a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff for my podcast. He's a busy guy. Let's just put it this way. I see your lovely lady came on here. Miss Dawn just popped on. So hi, Dawn. We're behaving. The boys are behaving. I promise, a little bit. Now we are, because she's watching. So well, Hank, thanks for joining today. I look forward to you producing this episode for my podcast and getting it out there, and all the things that
thanks for having me, Jimmy. Always a pleasure to catch up.
Yeah, man. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was informative to you, and hopefully we don't get it taken down, because we said some little things in there that might tick off the overlords at social media, but oh well, it needs to get out there, and I'm glad we were able to get it out here today.
Have you experienced the dreaded keto flu? Did you know that most of these symptoms are actually due to your body dumping excess electrolytes? This is where Element comes in. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means lots of salt with no sugar. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited to folks following a keto, low-carb, or paleo diet. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, with none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, no BS. Everyone needs electrolytes, especially those on low-carb diets, or if you practice intermittent or extended fasting, if you're physically active or sweat a lot. Add Element today and see how much better you feel and perform. Use the URL drinklmnt.com/Jimmy.